It's a pleasure to be here. I've been to TechDays and BC TechDays many years, and I think it's a fantastic conference with all of that technical content. Today, we're going to talk about AI. And I don't think that is a surprise to anyone. Everybody talks about AI these days, and we have also been talking about AI for the last couple of conferences here. In 2024, we talked about and showed Copilot features. We showed the chat experience inside the client. We showed marketing text suggestion, sales line suggestion that were built on the Copilot SDK. These Copilot features are narrow in scope. They typically involve one call to the AI model, and you get a response back, and you process that. The end user is responsible for the end-to-end process. So they have to do all of the work, but they get help in certain places from these Copilot features. So they're narrow, but it doesn't mean they are not useful. They can be very, very useful. In 2025, we introduced a couple more Copilot features. For example, autofill, summarize. Again, they are assistive features. They help the user, but the user is responsible for the end-to-end process. But we also introduced our first two agents. We showed them in preview versions, Sales Order Agent and Payables Agent. And there, the flow is turned upside down because it is the agent that is responsible for the end-to-end process, and the agent will invoke the user at certain times to get over something or get approval for something. So it's a radically different approach. And this year, it is all about agentic AI. There are AI agents everywhere, not just in Business Central, also the whole software engineering industry, and even outside, in legal, in journalism, and marketing, it's everywhere. So you might be wondering, why didn't we introduce agents back in 2024? Because, I mean, they're so much more useful, right? They have a lot more potential because they can do so much more. Why didn't we introduce them earlier? And I think the answer is, the models back then were not ready for it. It actually requires a stronger AI model to power an agent because it has to do so much more things right. I'd like to show you or give you an intuition of the evolution of AI models. And to do that, I want to introduce the concept of time horizon of software tasks. It's a concept that the Meter organization uses. Meter is an organization that evaluates AI models to see how capable they are over time as new models come out. So the way a time horizon works is, consider GPT 3.5. If you have a task that GPT 3.5 can handle with 80% success rate, then the question is, how long time would it take a human software engineer to do the same task? They actually had people come in and do these tasks. The answer was 15 seconds. So the 15 seconds is the human time to do that task. What can I do in 15 seconds in terms of software? Write one line of code, maybe two. It's not a lot. So would I delegate such a task to an agent? No, because it would take me more time to delegate and wait for it to do it. Then we move 1 year ahead, and GPT 4.0 comes out, and it has a time horizon of 53 seconds. That's actually an impressive improvement, right? More than triple the time. But still, it is not enough that I would actually delegate work to it. Let's move ahead, not 1 year, but 1.5 years. O1 comes out. It has a time horizon of 4 minutes. It's an impressive improvement. Then we go 8 months further, and Opus 4.0 comes out. It has a time horizon of 20 minutes. And now we're talking, because if I have a task that Opus 4.0 can handle, would I spend the 20 minutes myself, or would I spend, let's say, a couple of minutes or 5 minutes, whatever, to tell Opus 4.0 to do it, and it does it in also maybe 5 minutes, and I've saved 10 minutes, right? So now we're talking. Now they're actually becoming useful and time savers. Just 9 months later, Gemini 3.1 Pro comes out. It has a time horizon of 90 minutes. That's incredible. So if you plot these time horizons on a graph, you get something that looks like an exponential development. It starts really, really slow, but the capabilities, they just accelerate and keep accelerating. Nobody knows if this exponential development is going to continue. That is not for certain at all. But in a sense, it doesn't matter, because the way the capabilities of the models today is already so great that it is revolutionizing the field of software engineering, as we'll talk about a bit later. But I think this also gives you an intuition of why we couldn't have done agents in 2024, because the models were simply not capable to do that. So we are going to talk about AI agents in this keynote. AI agents can be many things. We're going to talk about all of these things. We have the native BC agents, sales order agent, payables agent. We have Copilot Studio agents. You can also build your own agent from scratch if you want. So these are what we can call product agents. They are kind of part of the Business Central user experience and used by end users. But we're also going to talk about engineering agents, agents that help you with your software engineering tasks. They can be VS Code agents, CLI agents, and GitHub agents. And we're going to talk about all of these. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about the native Business Central agents. These are deeply integrated into Business Central. You've probably seen Sales Order Agent and Payables Agent before. What we're also starting to see is our partners build agents themselves and deploying them to customers. And I'd like to show you a video from one of our partners.
Every day, thousands of shipments move across oceans, from farms in Latin America and Asia to warehouses and customers in Europe. At the heart of every shipment is a shipping manifest. A manifest is the official document that lists everything in a shipment: what goods are being transported, in what quantities, the container, pallet ID, and what is loaded on the pallet. It's essential for logistics, finance, and customs, but for many companies, it's still handled manually. Until now, that was the reality for companies like Interfruit. Every day, vendors emailed PDFs with the manifests listing loaded pallets. Someone had to open the email, download the attachment, read the document, verify the information, and manually create purchase orders in Business Central. Each manifest took 20 minutes to process, and this happened up to 10 times a day. Time-consuming, repetitive, with risk of human error. That's where Aptian's Manifest Agent for Business Central changes everything. The agent continuously monitors a shared mailbox. When a manifest arrives, it automatically reads the document, extracts the data, validates it, and creates the purchase orders in Business Central. The right vendor, the right items, the right quantities, and locations. No manual work required, except a simple initial email confirmation. The agent runs securely through a job queue every 5 minutes, ensuring manifests are processed quickly and consistently. Each step is logged, every action is traceable. What once took up to 20 minutes now happens in minutes, accurately, reliably, and automatically. The result? Less manual work, fewer mistakes, faster operations. And teams can finally focus on what matters instead of processing PDFs. This is Agentic automation in action, built by Aptian, powered by Dynamics 365 Business Central.
So kudos to Aptian for making this very nice agent. And now you might be wondering, how can you create these agents? And the answer is, we've made it now very easy to get started. We have introduced an agent design experience, very nice experience inside the client, where you can start to create agents on your own. And when you're ready to kind of package it up and deploy it as an extension, we have an SDK to do that too. And I'd like to show it to you. Actually, I'll invite Steffen on stage. Please give Steffen a warm welcome.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you. Let's see if I can wake this one up. Let's build an agent that actually does something for us, a real business process. So you can see up here, I'm a developer, maybe I'm a consultant, maybe I'm even a power user in a company that wants to build my own agent. So in this sandbox here, I'm able to do that. And up here you can see the agents that Christian just talked about. They're ready for me to configure, but I also have an agent plus.
Which one are you?
Oh, shoot. Sorry. We go to 5. There we go. So try again, right? Try again. 1, 2, 3. So up here, you see all the agents that Christian talked about, the sales order agent and the payables agent and so forth. But we also have the agent we can create here our own. So let's get started. You guys ready for that? Let's see. So wakey. I can start here and I can create an agent from a template, and we'll of course add more templates as we go along, but I'm going to create one from scratch. Here I get started in a WYSIWYG kind of a wizard experience here, and that's really helpful because I can start by putting in a name. And what I want to do here is a simple example of a sales return agent that helps me track the incoming return requests and does the credit memos and so forth. So let's call it the sales return agent, right? We can give it a name. This doesn't have to be fancy. It's for me, the human, to understand what this is all about. So we do sales returns. Okay, so far so good. Now we get to the important part. So an agent here is not just magic, right? It's actually more than that. It's what the agent can see, what it's allowed to do, what tools it has available, and of course the instructions on what it needs to do. So we start with what it can see. We can choose here, because we want to do returns, we can choose to start with the accounts payable account receivables administrator, sorry. That will give the agent a broad enough view of the product to kind of do its thing. I will need to return to this to figure out if I need to adapt the view that the agent has and the agent can see. So this is the view on the product that the agent has. It's what actions are available, what fields are available, so what it can see and do. Next things is the permissions. Here, I want to narrow down the permissions to what the agent can do. We're in experiment mode here, so of course I'll choose a very broad one, right? Remember, we'll come back to this when we know the agent and we know what it wants to do, and we'll adapt this and make this even more strict. Okay, now the important part, right? The instructions. So I'm imagining here that we have a scenario where I'll receive an email, and then I'll have to process that and figure out what that needs to do. So I'm thinking a good instruction here would be an overall description of what the agent is, some guidelines to what it can do, and then the steps it actually needs to do. So I talked to some people that actually knows how this works, and I created a small one here. I'll copy that and put that in here. So the top here is, what's the purpose of this agent? Receiving the returns. What are the guidelines? Don't create credit memos without approvals. Find customers by email. Use pieces if you don't know what kind of unit of measure it is. These kind of things. And then the instructions. How do we handle returns? Well, we create a credit memo. We put in some information about the work description. Maybe we create the credit memo and print it as a PDF and attach it as a reply. Seems good enough, right? It's the first iteration. It's not perfect, absolutely not perfect, but it's good enough to me to get started, to kind of figure out what my agent is supposed to do here. So I'm going to say okay to that. Now we need to test the agent. So we'll go here, we'll activate the agent so it can start processing. Agents are not autonomous as such. They don't work just by activating them. They need to be triggered somehow. They need a task to do. So here we'll give it a task by creating a task here. The scenario I was talking about was an email coming in. An email has a subject, a title, and I came prepared. So I have one here. Somebody wants to return some damaged chairs. We had in our instructions that we wanted to look up by name or by email, so I prepared an email address. This is one of our customers. So I'll get an email from Robert, and what will the email say? It will say, we have some damaged chairs, I'd like to return them. I want to return all the chairs, so that's an interesting statement. And I also want to return all the lamps, right? So how do we know more? Well, Robert here is actually good at adding some more details, so he added the invoice that he got. And on that invoice, we can see here clearly that he received some chairs. Actually, he received both black and yellow chairs, and he received some lamps. This is great, awesome. He'll attach that to the email, and he also added some details on what was wrong with the order. He put in some text here on the image saying that there's some scratches and there's a broken leg, right? So from that, we can learn a lot more about what's wrong. We'll put that in here. Now I can start this task, but before I do, remember I said we have to iterate on this. We have to come back and change the instructions, the profile, the permissions. So I'll go up here and save this as a template, so I don't have to paste this in all the time, right? Now I can use this template again and again when I iterate on one of these dimensions. Let's do that, and we don't want to edit it now, we just want to run it. So now I've kicked off a task for the agent to process, and the agent is active, we just did that, but the agent runs in the background, so it will not pick it up right now. It may start processing, but it will figure out what to do along the way. And I can keep an eye on this as an engineer here, trying to figure out what this agent does in the task log. The first thing that happens here is that we see that it got some kind of message, and we can see that here. If I refresh here, it may not be ready yet. Fair enough. Let's give it one more go here. Fair enough, we'll give it a little time. But inside each task log, you can find some details about what that task is about. So we can look at a task log entry here. This one is pretty simple because it's just a message. So this is what happened. A message was received. And right now, there's no action for this one. We can go to the details and view what message was all about. We can see the attachments and so forth. And hopefully when we come back here, my agent has picked up some more work. And that didn't happen. So of course I came prepared. Here we go, poof, magic. So here we have the return agent. As you can see, this is my backup. So he did some work, same message, he came in, and we can look at some of the details. Let's take one of these interesting entries we have here. So when we look at these entries, we can look at what the agent actually saw. In this case, we can see that it was on a sales credit memo. We can see the page type and all these properties that the agent can see and look into. We can see what actions are available, what actions can the agent choose from. And of course, some place down here, there's some information about the fields that were on the page. So this is all the information that the agent has access to. And from there, it can choose to do something. And how does it do something? Well, it can choose this. It can choose from the tools that the agent has access to. So the platform puts out some tools that the agent can use. In this case, we saw that it wanted to invoke an action, and that's actually a tool here. So it has the data, and it has the tool, and now we can go do stuff. At some point, the agent may choose to involve involve a user, and we can check up here. There's a user intervention type here, and this is actually what we see over here. So we see that there's a user intervention to review a message. We can go review that, and we can see if it's the right kind of message. We can even see if it attached the document that we wanted it to attach. I have too many fingers today. And we can see that's the sales credit memo that it was to create. So we have a full process here. It can do stuff. It can figure out that it needs to create the credit memo and create the reply and attach the document. And it can even tell me here that there were some damaged chairs, so it took the work description in there also. Great stuff, right? But this was just the beginning. And as you can imagine, these instructions are maybe not quite done yet. And the first thing I notice, at least here, is that maybe we should validate that they actually bought the items that they're trying to return, right? So this is what we do. We go back, we revise the instructions, we figure out what else to do. So we can go again here and say we want another one here, saying validate that a sales invoice exists with, and spelling is also, the items the customer wants to return. You get the picture, right? I changed the instructions, and now I can run the task again. Because I have a task template, I can just click here and click run, and it starts again, right? And we can even go back here. This one actually finished. So you see, this is how this works. You have you have access to the task log to investigate what goes on, what is the agent doing, how is it processing the request, what actions will it take, what data will it insert, and then you can iterate on permissions, on profile, and on the instructions. At some point, you're ready. You think now's the time to take this from an experiment into something we want to put in production and share with others. So I can go and I can download the instructions here. There we go. I did that already, so we can do it once more. And then you can go to Visual Studio Code. So we go to Visual Studio Code, and we do a new project. We've added the template here that gets you started really fast. You just use the agent template, define where you want to put it, put some kind of object range start, and now you're ready. You have a template project here that has all the details that you need in order to create your own agent in Business Central. Okay, so what will I do with this? Well, the first thing I want to do is read the README, right? This README here contains all the information I need to know in order for me to build my own agent. And why should I build it, right? Nobody wants to do all this work by themselves. So I'll use my agent over here. And I'll go to my downloads folder here somewhere. Where's my downloads? There we go. And I'll take the agent instructions. I'll add those. So now I have the instructions and I have the README. And I'll just say use the README to implement the agent with the attached instructions. Right? Doesn't get easier than that. Just click once and it will do all this stuff. Now, I know all of us have like coding guidelines and other things and naming and style, so I actually created a different agent over here. This is my Ray Returns agent. I gave it a name because it's much more friendly. So I did the same thing. I took the template and up here somewhere in the beginning, I told it to use the README and the instructions and create the template. And it did it. And as any good Copilot functionality, it has a Ray Returns capability that you can turn on and off in the admin. It has the implementation of my agent here, the type in the agent metadata provider, so we can tell the system about what kind of agent it is. And of course, it has all the setup page that I want for my agent and all the other things, even the instructions that we downloaded, right? So quickly I can get started creating my own agent, and now I can iterate on this one. At some point I feel, let's go to production. So I'll press F5 or I'll actually upload it into my production environment. So let's go see this one. There we go. Here's the production environment. Looks kind of the same, but it doesn't have the Agent Plus, so it's easy to see that it's not a sandbox anymore. But now it has my Ray Returns. There we go. It's ready for me to activate and set it up. The first thing you will notice here when I activate it is that the setup experience is a little bit different than the agent creation. So when you create your own agents like this, you have to provide all the configuration that you want users to be able to do. And that includes if you want them to be able to adjust the instructions slightly or any other configuration settings that you might want. So now we've not only just built an agent in a sandbox and demoed how that worked, we iterated on it, we figured out what didn't work, and we tried to make the agent a little bit better, and we could do that many times. But we also took it to production. We took it to a product we can ship and share with others. And with that, we've created an agent. Back to you, Christian.
Thank you very much, Steffen. Yes, so we've seen now how easy it is to get started to create an agent in Business Central with our design experience and with the SDK. Let's move on to Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is a very flexible environment. It has connectors to 1,000 apps, so it can integrate with many different products. And you can run it on a trigger, like in autonomous mode, or you can run it in interactive mode, for example, interact with it in Teams. So if you need that kind of flexibility, Copilot Studio is a good choice for you to create your agent there. How are we enabling Business Central to be used in Copilot Studio? we are enabling Business Central through making it an MCP server. So as an MCP server, Copilot Studio agents can interact with it. And I would also like to show you how that works. But I'm not going to show it myself. I would like to invite Purusharth on stage. Please also give Pur a warm welcome.
Hey everyone, I'll just start up my machine. And yes, so my name is Purusharth Dwivedi. I'm an engineer with the runtime team, and I want to show you how easy it is today to set up an external agent that talks to your business data. Whether it's using Copilot Studio or any MCP client, whether it's VS Code, Copilot, or Cloud Code, any MCP client essentially. So I'm in the standard agent builder experience of Copilot Studio, and I honestly don't really know how to build these agents in Copilot Studio. So what I've done right now so far is just set up very basics. I've set up the name of the Copilot agent that I want to build. I'm building a customer Copilot, and I wanted to handle all queries related to my customers, their financial documents, and their sales, invoices, orders, and so on. I'm using the standard agent model, which is a GPT-5 chart, and a very simple set of instructions on how I want my model to work. In this case, that it's specializing in queries about my customers, and I wanted to proceed without asking me for confirmation, and some additional guidance on how to use resources and how to use web search, since I'm also enabling web search. But of course, when you're building agents for Copilot Studio gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to connectors, tools, additional knowledge sources, and so on. But right now, my agent does not work because it's not connected to Business Central. But using the Business Central MCP, let's see how we can make it work. So all you need to do is go to the Tools tab and select Add a Tool. And here, I want you to search for the Business Central MCP connector. And click on Model Context Protocol. So the connector shows up. And now you just click on Add and set it up. In my case, I already have the connector set up. I'm just going to enable it so we can skip the authentication flow. So here's the connector, and it should connect in just a second. And now, perfect. So when you set up the connector, you only need to provide 3 important things. You need to provide the Business Central environment you're trying to connect to. You provide the name of the company, and you provide something called the MCP server configuration. All right, so what is MCP server configuration? It's a tool set. It's a set of tools that have been defined by an MCP admin on your Business Central, and it defines what APIs or what tools that can be exposed under this configuration name by the MCP server. So for example, if I'm building an inventory management agent, then I can create a tool set that has only the tools relevant for my use case, and I can use the inventory management tools. In this case, I'm building a customer agent, so I'm using these customer APIs. But I'll show you how it works in just a minute, right? If I scroll down, I can see all the tools that I'm getting from my Business Central. And here I have tools for managing my customer. I have tools for managing my sales orders, invoices, and so on. And so the same query that did not work, I'll try that again, and we can quickly jump into how we can change the configuration. All right, so new session. And all right, so while the agent works, let's take a look at Business Central and how we modify the configuration, how we add more tools, and how we can change or add more permission to my tools. So I'm going to switch to Business Central. Here, just search for MCP. And that brings you to the MCP configuration page, where you have all the tool sets or configurations defined. Now, we were dealing with the customer APIs, so I'm just going to go in this one. And the first thing you'll notice is that the UI is a bit different, right? If you have been using MCP, it's a lot different. The first thing is that we have now multiple server features, and in this one, API tools is enabled. What that means is when you publish APIs to Business Central, those APIs can now be exposed as tools through your MCP. And in this case, if I scroll down, I can see all the APIs that are added to this particular configuration. And I have tools for customers, sales invoices, orders, and I can also see specific permissions that I provided to these pages and APIs. So I'm allowing read, I'm allowing delete, and so on, right? Another important thing I want you to notice is now we also support API queries. Because of course API pages are great for creating, modifying, deleting records. But with API queries, you can get data, joining multiple tables, performing more complex operations like grouping, aggregation, and so on. All right, so how do you modify this configuration? All you need to do is disable the existing configuration and click on Select APIs, and that should bring up a list of all your API pages and queries in just a second. That's it, right? And for example, I don't want my agent to be able to delete customers. All I need to do is go over here and unselect delete, and that's it. Once I'm happy with my configuration, I can just enable it, and everything just works just like that. All the MCP clients or Copilot Studio that is connected to this configuration, they get the tool list change notification through the MCP protocol, and they'll get the new set of tools. I think the agent should have also completed, so I'll just show you what happened here. With the new set of tools, the Copilot Studio agent made a request to Business Central, and it used the customer financial details tool. When the tool returned some results, it returned the results as a file, which is the embedded resource. And then what Copilot Studio did was it took this file reference and plugged it into the code execution tool, which allowed us to generate these nice visualizations. But what happens if you have a very large number of APIs in your configuration? So I have a demo configuration that I've created here, which is just enable all tools, right? And in this, what I've done is I've added all the published API objects as tools for this MCP server. The problem is this configuration will not work with most of your MCP clients, the reason being way too many tools. Copilot Studio has a hard limit of just 70 tools. And so what we have also added is under API tools, there's an option called dynamic tool mode. So what you can do is you can deactivate the configuration, enable the dynamic tool mode, and when you do, you get 3 system tools or 3 meta tools that are there on the right side you can see. And now agents can use these 3 meta tools to search across your configuration or configured APIs, and they can use the describe tool to understand how to use an API tool that you have added, and then the invoke tool to actually do the task or carry out the action. Finally, when you're building agents, it's not always clear what API pages or API queries you need to add to the configuration. And that's why for more generic data Q&A scenarios, we are also going to be starting a preview of data query tools, which allow your agents to write queries and execute them directly against your Business Central tables and get data. But I don't have time right now, but we'll have to go through one of our sessions and we'll talk about it in more detail. Finally, when you're happy with the configuration, just enable it. And if you want to test it out in a client like MCP, like VS Code or your CLI agents, all you need to do is select options, and you can get the connection string here directly. So in this case, I'm just going to get the connection string from this and set it up in my VS Code. We've also made it simple to just share configurations, by the way. You can export configurations, import them, and so on. All right, so in VS Code, every time you add MCP servers, you add it to the mcp.json, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll just copy the configuration here, and in just a second, Copilot Studio, in this case, VS Code should detect the configuration, and it will get the latest set of tools, which should be just 3 because we enable dynamic tool mode in that particular configuration. So the main thing I wanted to get out of this is that if you have any MCP client that supports the OAuth 2.1 authentication, you can now connect it to Business Central MCP. We have a special dedicated connector for Copilot Studio, and you can also expose any API page, API query to your Business Central configurations to create very dedicated agents for your use cases. And we'll also be starting the preview for the data query execution tools that allow you a lot more flexibility and your agents a lot more flexibility in getting the right data. And of course, security is important, safety is important, and so you can use the block edit tools directly on configuration to just disable all modification scenarios and just default to read-only scenarios. And you also go through the normal Business Central permission system. So if the user has a tool, but they don't have access to the underlying table, they'll not be able to get any data out of it. But that was the Business Central platform MCP, right? And it's great for building agents that interact with your business data. But we also have an admin center MCP that allows you to just manage your environments directly. So you can give this MCP to your Claude Code or VS Code agents, and they can just manage the entire lifecycle of your environments, create sandboxes, investigate upgrade issues, reschedule upgrades, and so on. The only thing missing right now is some destructive endpoints, but this is only for the duration of the preview, but we'll be bringing them back as well. That's all from me. Thanks a lot. Back to
Thank you very much, Purusharth. So that shows how you can build agents inside Business Central if you want that native feeling. Or you can create them in Copilot Studio, for example, if you want a little bit more flexible experience, or in any other MCP host, really. So this is where I would recommend you create your agents. They provide a very nice environment that you can very easily get started. Small configuration, not so much code. It has guardrails, it has a testing and experimentation experience, and it just makes it a lot easier to create an agent than if you had to do it from scratch. But if you have a scenario that for some reason requires you to live outside of those experiences, then you can do so. You can build an agent from scratch. It is not something I would recommend for the reason I explained before, because you are taking on a lot more work if you do everything yourself. We have an example like that. We actually have a scenario where we want to be exposed in new form factors. We want to integrate with multiple backends, and it didn't fit in those two cases. And this is actually our third agent from Microsoft, which is the expense agent. And I would like to show you that, or again, I would like to invite Michael on stage to show you expense agent. Please give him a warm welcome.
Okay, let me just get it booted up here. All right, let me see. I am that screen. Okay. So I'm here to talk about the new expense agent for Business Central. I know we're just getting started, but imagine that you're back in the office Monday morning. It was a great conference, BC TechDays. But of course now there was great sessions and everything, there was dinners. But of course there's also this little bit annoying things that you now captured some receipts, some expenses that you actually need to get processed and get refunded or prove that you had these expenses. So that's not the favorite part of going to this conference, right? But this is where we come with the expense agent. So when I was going back to the airport Friday afternoon, I already saw I got like the hotel bill and some other expenses, and I basically just forwarded these to the new expense agent. And when I get back to work, what is greeted by is just that then the expense agent replied me with a nice message that there is a report ready for me, and it has processed some of the expenses. And I can now go and review that. So let's just quickly switch into the expense agent, right? So this is the new dedicated web app we made. It's just for dealing with expenses. And to use this, you actually do not need a BC license. You don't need to be a user actually in Business Central, but you need to be set up as an expense user. And then you, as a submitter, you can just go and use this. But of course, I have a few more receipts I need to get started handling. So I can just upload these receipts, and they will be uploaded to the expense agent and be processed. So while that's ongoing, we can take a look at what the expense engine already did. And let's just take a quick look at that. So this is, it's just a taxi receipt. You can see it's in Danish. Of course, the expense agent doesn't really care what language and the receipt is in. It will just go and process them. And you can see we extracted like the amount, the date of it, the merchant, and we also categorized it. In this case, it's ground transportation. Well, let's see what more it did. Okay, here's another one. Looks a little bit funny, but it's just the train ticket from getting here. and also that has been processed and handled. And then let's take a look at, so this is actually the hotel bill, a very typical kind of hotel bill, nothing special, 2 nights stay and some breakfast and so on. And again, the expense agent has extracted the information and it's categorized it into a hotel stay. And because it's a hotel stay, my company requires me to actually go and itemize the bill. That's where you really start saving time with the expense agent, because of course it just did that and put in all the lines, so you don't have to. I can also see that the 2 ones I just uploaded, they actually already was processed. So this is actually the flight itinerary from going here and back to Copenhagen. And what that is actually used for is actually the per diem calculation, what your allowance will be, because it extracted the information where you're going. And instead of having to go and look this information up, the expense agent actually already calculated these numbers for me, so I don't have to go and do that. So that's great. And then it's just one more. Again, you can of course just use your camera and snap a thing. It doesn't really matter on the side. It will also go and deal with that. So that actually means this expense seems to be all good and almost ready to kind of submit. But of course, when I look in my back pocket, what do I find? There's always one more expense that I kind of need to deal with. So how do I actually get that into the expense agent? And for that, it's a good opportunity to show you the new dedicated mobile app we're still working on it for the expense agent, so I hope it all works. So here I just started up, and to get this new expense in here, I basically just go here, right? I just need to hover the phone over it and keep it still. It will capture the receipt, and I just say OK. And as you can see, it goes straight into the expense agent. It's uploading it and will be processing it. And in this new phone view, the experience is a little bit different. We basically created a feed, as you know from social media apps. You can basically just scroll down and see all the incoming expenses are all here. And you can go in and look at the details. We can take a look at this one. I can just kind of zoom in, see all the information. I can see that, again, this was the per diem one we did before. All the information is right here. I can see the per diem days and everything. And if I actually want to, say, go and edit anything, I can, of course, just do that and go back. But this seems to just check out, so I don't want to change anything on this one, right? Oh, now this new one has actually been processed, and it was going so well, but actually this turns out to be not compliant with the different rules and policies that my company has, so let's just go and check. Oh, yeah, it's just a restaurant bill, and let's see if you can get any information why. So actually down here in the bottom, we'll kind of show you why it's not compliant, and this was just because it was a restaurant bill with a few of my colleagues, so I'm actually required to add the participants. So let me just go and do that. Of course, I was there, and let's just add one of my colleagues as well, and say, okay, I'm fine with that for now. Just hit save. And then, well, of course, this will all be saved. And if we are lucky, the expense report should come back up as kind of compliant again. All right, so that actually means I'm kind of happy with this now. All I need to do to just confirm, yes, I'm happy. I just need to slide this so it will actually be added to that expense report. So now this whole thing looks good, and I just want to actually submit this expense report for approval. All I need to do is just go here and hit submit. So now this expense report will be sent for approval, and in this case my approver is actually my manager, Rina. And let's take a look at Rina's mailbox. She also has the expense agent enabled, and she also gets a mail like this showing her that what was the expense report, and it's kind of ready for review. And when she wants to review this, she's taken to the same web app. She can go here and see there's one for approval, So you can see this all seems good. I'm sure this guy was doing all of this, and it all seems compliant, and she can basically just hit approve. And then she's also done with all of this. And of course now, all this information, of course, we build all these experiences outside of BC to have these dedicated experiences, but all the information actually ends up going back into Business Central, and from where a finance controller or accounting can go on and actually get the expense report posted. That was all from me. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, personally, I cannot wait to have this experience for my expenses because it is a lot smoother than the system I'm using right now. If you want to try this out, you can actually already try it out today because it is in public preview, but you will have to create a US environment in the admin center, and then you can play with it. It's also going to come to more countries very soon. Already in July, we will release it to a bunch of countries, including at least 5 European countries. And if you're not among the list, in the list, it will come to your country soon after. So we are committed to doing that. So now we've covered native BC agents, Copilot Studio agents, and agents built from scratch, all facing the users. Let's switch our attention to the engineering agents. Engineering agents that help you write code and do other software engineering related tasks. They can live in VS Code, they can live on the command line, they can live in GitHub, in the GitHub cloud. This is actually the domain in which agents have come the furthest. The companies, the model companies, Anthropic, OpenAI, etc., they are investing heavily in this area, more so than in other areas. This is not something that I think, this is not an intuition. They have actually tested this. Anthropic, the company behind Claude Code, has analyzed the calls, the API calls that come in to their models. And they've categorized it into the different domains that they belong in. And the results are quite clear. The top one is software engineering. So half of the calls, half of the tool calls actually, are about something related to software engineering. You also see other knowledge work domains on the list. You see finance, I think, is on the list with 4%. You also see customer service with 2.2%. So things are happening in other areas. Like I'm a little bit surprised actually that customer service is only at 2.2% because customer service and support in particular is often mentioned as an area that AI can do really well, but apparently not. Software engineering, by far the biggest, right? And so this also tells you that AI agents are changing the field of software engineering. I hear many colleagues and others say they don't write code by hand anymore. You heard Luke in the beginning, same story. They delegate the coding tasks to the agents. And this is quite a shift.
There we go. Wakey, wakey. So, models continue to improve, as Christian talked about before, and as they do, they become better and better at generating AL code. So one of the things that we've been focusing our attention on is to give some of the tools that you use every single day to the agents. And to help agents understand how to work with AL code, not just generate code, but to actually work with AL code, we created some tools for it. If we go here in a project that I've opened, and we go to the tools sections over here, let's see if I can figure this out. We do a new session, and I'm going to see if I can find the tools. What happened to my tool? Somebody help me? Of course, yeah. Stress of doing demos, right? I mean, jeez. Okay, so we come back to this. Go to the tools here. We can see that VS Code already has some tools built in. So they're already giving us a lot of tools for our agent chat experience here to use. I've also configured this environment with an MCP server, not Purusharth. I'm not working with data now, I'm working with code. So I gave it our MCP for MS Learn, so it has the access to the documentation for writing AL code, so I can fetch examples and understand how to write AL code. And of course, I have also the AL language extension, which comes with a set of tools. And these are the tools that you use every single day: building, debugging, downloading symbols, and so forth, right? So you can use these tools directly. We can actually ask the agent here to say, I want to use the AL search symbol search. So I want to use this tool to find maybe a record or something like that, but maybe I want to ask a little more complicated. So I'll say use to find what is related to something in this solution. This solution is about assigning item certificates to items. So is it made of sustainable wood or metal or whatever? To item certificate assignment, right? So it's supposed to now use the tool to go and find things that are related to assigning item certificates. And it will use the AL symbol search tool to do that. Now, this was very explicit, and I don't need to be explicit because we have documented these tools in a way where the agent can discover them and figure out which tool is applicable to what task. So I don't really need to tell it what tool to use. But I can if I really want to. So this will be done in a second and figure out what's related to this item certificate. And if you're interested in understanding how the tools are used, you can go over here to the chat debug pane here and actually look at some of these things. And it should say here that it used the AL symbol search tool. And in here, you can also look at what input was sent to it and what output a tool gave. This can give you context to why tools may work or may not work and so forth. So it should be done here. Let's just see if it will be done in a second. Yeah, I'm just going to stop it because I want to show you something else. As I said, I don't need to call the tool directly. I can just call, let's say, build, if I can spell. So build can mean many things. We are in an AL project, so I expect it to know that we need to use the AL build tool to build, so it should be building my AL tool, or using my AL tool. Okay, so far so good. Now these are fairly simple examples. You can imagine how writing a more complicated prompt will give you a more elaborate usage of the symbols. But there's also a scenario where you probably haven't thought about it or using these tools. That is when you're troubleshooting. Like when I go into a project like this and I need to figure out where to set my breakpoint. Guys, think about that. How much time do you spend on figuring out the right place to set your breakpoint? Well, maybe I can just do set a breakpoint where we validate the valid if and a certificate is already assigned to an item. Well, this used to be something like you need to look through the code, maybe debug and step through it and figure out where it is, but now I can actually just ask the agent and it will find the right place to put in that breakpoint, and it would use the AL set breakpoint tool to set that breakpoint, so I can just press F5 or attach, and voila, I am right there where I want to be, right? Pretty cool. And there's lots more tools, and you can create skills that will use these tools in a certain order, in a certain way, to make you more productive in the way you write code in VS Code. Now, not everyone is writing code in VS Code anymore. A lot of people are working in other places. Some of these places are CLIs. Everybody loves a good command line interface, right? Yeah, I do. I'm a fan. So we've spent some time on bringing all these tools to you inside the CLI. And we can look at that. So we can ask here, what tools are available right now? Just here, what tools are available? So in this session, I already pre-configured the environment to have some tools. It has the built-in tools like VS Code, so there's some CLI commands and code tools. And it also has the AL MCP tools, right? So we can ask it more about that. So how is the AL MCP configured? Show me the what's it called? MCP.json, right? Purusharth. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if it will do that for me. So how do I get the tools into my CLI experience? It's simple. We just populate the connection string like Purusharth showed. In this scenario here, for getting our AL tools into to the CLI, I will configure it using a .NET tool called AL, and it has a launch MCP server. And it will load in the workspace of these two projects, right? So it's kind of similar to VS Code. You start up a program, in this case the MCP server, and you load in the solution. These are the projects, and now I have access to all these things as we saw in VS Code, and I can also say build, and it should pick up the tool for building. One thing we didn't talk about yet is testing, and inside VS Code we have actually enabled, so you can, where did it go? So you can call here run the test. Now, did any of you remember what was in the tools? I don't know. Let's go check again. We'll check here. Did you see a run test tool? No? Well, because we actually integrated with VS Code here, you got the Test Explorer now, and you can run tests there manually. But that also means that we can use the existing infrastructure and find the run tests in the built-in functionality, so we find it here. So this is a built-in functionality in VS Code. There's no run test in the CLI. So let's talk about what tools does the AL MCP have. Let's just ask it, right? So we brought the specific difference between VS Code and the CLI into the CLI. So we have here an AL run test tool. There are other tools that only belong in VS Code because that's a UI experience, but here we brought all the tools that you need in order to do this in a CLI. So let's go back to the tools and talk about this AL MCP thing. Let's see, this guy. How do you get this? It's quite easy. It's quite easy. So we go back to a browser here. Let's see, we have one here, and we go to the NuGet site. You will find the development tools here, and you can just copy this line and paste it into your favorite shell here. So we created a new packaging for the tool set, so you don't need to go into the v6 and figure out where the tools are there. You can just do the .NET tool install, and that gives you all the tools that you need in order to do these MCP calls and lots more. In this case, I'm choosing a version that is a beta version, as we can see here, so I'll also add the pre-release. This gives me access to all the latest things that we're working on, sometimes experiments, sometimes new features, bug fixes, and so forth. But when I've done this, I've installed this, I have access to the .NET tool AL. And as you can see here, it already has a lot of tools I can use, among others, the Launch MCP. And because I did the pre-release thing, I also got a new tool called Launch LSP server. So that's new. Think of the MCP like the tool chain, the tools it can use, the hammer and the nail. Whereas the LSP is more the brains, the understanding of the language, of how symbols act together, the references, maybe some dependencies and so forth. So we have different tools for different tasks, and the LSP, the language service protocol, is something that we can use to understand the language. VS Code uses the language service protocol to give you a rich experience inside VS Code, the hover over and so forth, the go to definition, you name it. But for an agent, it doesn't need all of that UI richness. It needs a smaller subset. So the LSP server that we have here is a reduced subset designed specifically for agents. And to kind of show what it can do without too much detail, I want to introduce a new UI. I could use the console here, but I want to use a new UI. So I have here the GitHub Copilot app. This was announced on Build just a few days ago. It is essentially a CLI, right? It's text-based. It's a chat interface. But it has a lot of niceness to it for the people who like a UI, and it has some easy access to features like work trees, and you can access the remote or the cloud sessions and so forth, right? And as we saw in the CLI, there was doc. We have the configuration of the MCP, and we can also see a scenario here where I've used the LSP. Let's go up to the top of this question here to kind of understand about who's calling stuff for this certificate assignment thing. And from that, the LSP, because it knows the details, all the details about relationships and the symbols that's in here, it can navigate that information and give me some great overviews here, some good understanding of the direct callers, event publishers, event raised, subscribers, or maybe a nice diagram of the flow itself. So lots of tools that we've made available for you to use when you're chatting with it, for agents and skills to use when they're running autonomously. With that, back to you, Christian.
Thank you very much, Steffen. So these are some really nice tools, and you can use those tools, give them to your agent. We are adding more tools. How many do we have now? 10 or so. We'll be adding more tools. You can give your agents instructions in the form of skills or agent definitions. So you might be wondering, how do we know we are making things better? If we add more tools, are we making things better? If we give them more instructions, is it getting better? It can actually be counterproductive to give your agent too much information. So what we've also done is go, systematically here, look at how can we make sure we are improving the situation versus actually degrading it with good intentions. We'd like to show you how we've done this, and that will be Artur who is going to show that. Please welcome Artur.
Yeah, that's indeed a great question, Christian. So we have a lot of tools and new models comes out basically every single day. So we need to figure out how to validate, how to make sure. And we also built our own tools. You saw them. We need to know the direction. So what would be the next tool for us? And for that, we introduce the BCbench. Still not here. Yeah, we introduced the BCbench. It is the Business Central evaluation framework for coding agents. We got the inspiration from the Svinth evaluation framework for popular programming languages such as C# and then the Python. But we have our own programming language, L, and we have our own tools. And what is also very important for evaluation frameworks, we have our own data sets. We have the commits made by real engineers for a very long time in different domains, finance, SCMs, different first-party apps. So we take this data set and we run the experimentation loop. So that with that experimentation loop, we take one variable in the time, would that be model, the MCP, and then instruction. We run the BCbench, and then we get the number, basically how many bugs the Business Central coding agent can fix, or how many IL tests can it implement. In the beginning of our journey, we identified the baseline. We took the harness, GitHub Copilot CLI. We took the whatever was the frontier model back in days. No specialized agents, no instructions, no tools. We run the BCbench, and we get the number. And from that number, we started the journey applying the hill climbing strategy. When you pick one variable at a time, you measure it, and you decide if the accuracy goes up, you keep it. If not, you revert it. So from the baseline, we tested on the new model. Great, the accuracy goes up. We keep it. Then the new tool that Steffen presented, we tested on the new tool. Great, accuracy goes up. We keep it. Then we decided, let's go with the specialized agent. Let's add some instructions. And now this is a true story. We've been working on an internal agent, IL test agent, for writing IL tests. And our assumption was, okay, let's just take all the instructions that we have about the coding guidelines, test structure, good patterns. Let's just throw all the way to the instruction. Should be better, right? More context is better. We ran it in BCbench, and the result was actually opposite. It was 5% worse. And then we realized the more context is not always better. So we shorten our instruction, make them more precise. Then by keeping the same model and then the same tool from the previous run, we added short instruction, and the accuracy eventually goes up. Great. Where you can read more about BCbench. It is a public repo on the GitHub, so you can read more about how does it work, what is inside. On the right side, you can find the link to the leaderboard where you can see all the numbers. And here's how you can read and understand those numbers. So let's say a test generation, how good we are at generating AL tests. We ran on the different models. There's no special instructions, no agents or the tools. In the baseline, only the harness and the model. And we rank all the results by the models on top. And we can see that the Cloud Opus 4.5 performed on 55%, and then right after that goes 4.6, and then so on and so on. So then we decided, okay, let's just pick the model. For example, Cloud Opus 4.6, we have 51.7. Great, and let's take a look. Let's apply the instructions on top of it. Would that be better or not? And then that was exactly referring to the story with the test agent. We applied our shortened instruction, and it was 10% better. Great. Now we have a specialized agent with that model, so we can move forward. So that's how we evaluate. BCbench is an open source project, so you can take it as inspiration to evaluate your own agents, skills, and tools. Back to you, Christian.
Yeah. So what? So getting started with agentic engineering at its core is actually quite simple. You saw the tools that Steffen presented, and it is all about configuring a few MCP servers, the AL MCP server. You can also have the Microsoft Learn MCP server, and you can have an MCP server that connects to your GitHub account or your Azure DevOps account so that it can work with issues and work items. And then you can also give it instructions, as Artur explained. Like if you give it some instructions, it can become better and do things more like you like it. You can make agents, you can add skills. We also have the BC Quality initiative where we have a repo that has kind of these in a shared place so that you can just use them without having to reinvent the wheel. So that's you can learn more about this in other sessions. But actually now that I still have you here on stage, Artur, would you mind showing us how you do work? Take us behind the scenes. How do you actually apply these tools in your daily life?
Yeah, sure. Let's see it, Christian. So I do a lot of things at my work, and the bug fixing is one of the important ones. And I have a GitHub repo with a couple of issues, but I'm not going to fix it by myself. I want agent to do this. And for that, I set up this repo for agentic engineering. Just like Steffen presented, I have the MCP JSON with LMCP server to compile, publish, and then run tests. Under GitHub folder, I have the LSP JSON, language server protocol, for the smart search in the codebase. And then I have a variety of different skills. I'm not going to go into details how they work. There will be plenty Microsoft session. I hope the partners one. How does it work under the hood and how you can build it. I just want to run it in action. So for that, I prefer to start from the terminal. And to trigger my workflow, I want to run the following prompt, start an LD session. This is the one that I basically run in every single new session. And that phrase will trigger the skill, setting up my dev session. It will do several things. First of all, it will take GitHub issues assigned to me and present this to me to actually pick one of them. So I see the picker. Great. Let's work on this one, for example. I choose this one. That will create a Git branch, pulling the latest from main, setting up this branch, and then moving forward. Okay, from the GitHub issue, there's some description, what it's all about. That skill goes through all the EL projects that I have and try to identify which are relevant for this GitHub issue. There are 4 projects in my repo, but that agent matches this to the description of the GitHub issue and says, okay, the first 2 projects for certificate management are relevant and the latter 2 is not. Great, so I choose those 2 projects. Why it is important? Because I want to set up the whole context around those 2 projects and I want to make sure that compilation and publish works for those 2 projects. Resolving local environments, -t is working, that's great. Then the subscale, a very small one for the LSP, making sure that LSP contains both projects, great. So it's setting up the LSP, testing it works fine, writing all the necessary configs, that's great. Then setting up AL tools. In order to make it work, it needs to call the AL add project tool, adding both app and the test projects. That's great. And let's just give it a second for the summary. Great. I'm up and running. I have my branch. I have my projects, NST. I'm ready to go. Now I need to fix the bug, actually do the thing. I can let the general agent do this, and in most of the cases, that should be fine. But I want to go it in a very specific way. I want to go through the planning mode, and then I want to do the test-driven development. I want to let agent implement the test first, make it red, and then implement the fix. And this is kind of a workflow. And what is the best way for the workflow? It's, of course, have a skill for this. And I can trigger the skill with running let's plan and fix the bug. It's immediately load the skill, and then it will read everything that I have in the GitHub issue, description, repro steps, the comments, everything that is important. And then it will go to the assessment phase, trying to identify whether there's enough information, whether the repro steps are clear, description. And then it will get me to the planning mode where agent either saying, yeah, it's fine, everything is missing, or it's just enough. You see language server protocol is running here because I have it up and running. It starts to reading the objects and actually found the bug, or at least have a theory around the bug. So it's the investigation is completed at this moment, and then I basically have my plan ready. So let's give it a second to go until the end. Yeah, great. So let's see what we have here. A root cause analysis, so what kind of problem agent was able to detect, the proposed fixed, and the affected files, what needs to be changed, acceptance criteria. Great. So I can review the file, I can make some changes, and then push the agent forward. But I think I'm running out of time, so I want to do the following. I'm not going to confirm it right now. I want to run the remote command. I want to do the following. I want to set up the dev tunnel between my local environment and the cloud environment. So now I'm moving from my environment, I won't have an access to that one, to the cloud. And I can not just see what is happening on my local environment, but I can also interact. So I can say, I confirm the plan, and it will go forward. And I will be able to see it without the environment. And it looks like I won't be able to access my laptop because I'm running out of time. But I have GitHub Copilot app on my phone, so I can steer the agent to the right direction and wait for the pull request.
Amazing. Thank you, Artur. So you see how we are making it possible to use agents with AL. We're making AL a first-class citizen in the world of agentic engineering, in VS Code and CLI, and the tools are kind of plug and play, as Steffen also showed. He can plug it into the new GitHub app as well, and you can use it from Cloud Code, etc. So if you paid attention to what Artur did at the very end, he ran the remote on command, and that created a connection to github.com, basically. His agent was still running on his machine, but he could now remote control it from the cloud or from his phone. What we're also exploring is GitHub actually running the agent. Like the agent would no longer run on the machine, it would run in a container in the cloud. This is not an approach that we have really used yet internally, but we are exploring it. And I'd like to show you how our vision looks for that. So at the core of it is GitHub. And if you use ALGO for GitHub, it will come pre-packaged with many of these tools. This is our vision. We don't have it. We have a signal agent. It is monitoring signals out there, for example, from BC ideas. If there's an idea, a new idea, it can pick it up, evaluate it, and send it to the triage agent. Not all ideas are good, right? So the triage agent will evaluate it, look at, are there similar issues or ideas, kind of see, is it a good idea? What would it take to do? Then the planning agent will, assuming it's a good idea, the planning agent will make a plan for addressing this. If it's a bug, then have a plan for the bug fix, as Artur also showed. The development agent will actually implement it, and once the implementation is done, a review agent will review the code like in an objective observer and saying that's good and that's bad. And you can also imagine that an agent will actually release it to a sandbox environment or even to production, right? This is a vision. In all of this, there will be human in the loop. Like, agents are not mature enough that they can evaluate and they have all the context. It still takes a human to make a decision at the end, whether the architecture is right, whether it's a good idea and we should prioritize it over other things, etc., etc. So this is where the role as software engineer is going. As we see it, they are kind of running these agents, and that's their new role. I want to show you how it might look. This is a board in GitHub, and you have a column for each agent. So you have a signal agent, a triage agent, planning agent, implementation agent, and more agents. And so here we can see we have an issue. It's a bug. It's a performance bug, and the signal agent has picked it up from somewhere, maybe from our telemetry. And so what I can say is, as a human, I can say, hey, I'm going to actually assign that to the triage agent. And this is going to kick off the triage agent to do the work and analyze it compared to other things that there might be in this area. And when it's done, it will signal to me it's ready. And so I can go and look at what it wrote. If I scroll down, you can see the triage agent has provided its analysis. And in this case, it needs more work. This is not a sure thing. So this is where, again, the human judgment needs to come in. And, is this really something we want to address, or is it like by design in this case, maybe? But what I can do in this case is also I can say, whatever, I'm not going to write something here, but I can write instructions to the triage agent to go and look in another direction that I may know about. And then when it comes back, I can, of course, drag it to the planning agent, and it will develop an implementation plan for it, etc., etc. This is how it might look. Maybe next year we will be able to show this to you in real life. So with all of these investments, you can ask the questions, a valid question, are we getting anything out of it? What are the results? We have investing in the tools as a development organization ourselves. We are adopting the tools and adopting the practices. What benefits do we get? So we have a lot of qualitative results, like we think we are becoming more innovative because of this. We don't hesitate to create an experiment because experiments are cheap now. So we experiment. And what happens when you create an experiment now is you get something that looks very finished. So you actually are able to evaluate whether this is a good idea. How will this be if we go that path? And so that leads to better product decisions. So we generally feel we go in the right direction. Documentation agents are really good at writing documentation, so we are able to keep up with documentation and close the gaps that we had. Same with tests, more tests, better tests, higher quality. And in terms of productivity, there's also this feeling that we have where we are becoming more productive overall. But this is just a sense that we have. It would be nice to put some numbers on this, but numbers are really hard here. How do you objectively measure quality and productivity? It's really, really hard. We have one number we would like to share with you. That is the number of completed pull requests in our main branches. And there you see a significant jump of 50% in January. This is around the time when we systematically started to use agentic engineering. So you can definitely see an increase in the number of pull requests. You have to take this with a grain of salt. It might be that the pull requests are smaller, so we're just checking in smaller things. It might be that they contain a lot of bugs and the quality is going down. We don't know, but we can see something happened. And combined with the qualitative results, or what we are seeing, what we are sensing, I think personally that we have become a lot more productive as an organization. And I think this is just the beginning. I hope next year we can say we are 100% or 200% more productive than we are today. This concludes the main section of the keynote. And now we're going to switch to a familiar section, which is from the lab. And from the lab is where we show you some experiments that we're doing back home. Experiments that may never lead to anything. They may never materialize in product that you can use or customers can use. But of course we hope they will be. Like, we don't do it for fun either. We have a hope that this might lead to something. But there's no guarantees. And I'd like to have Esben show you the few demos on what we're doing. Please welcome Esben.
Thank you, Christian. Can you advance the slide? I'll do it. We have already talked a lot about tools for developers to change BC. But what about end users? Imagine for a moment that end users could just describe what they want to change, and BC would adapt. Hide something, remove something that you do not use, add something that is important to you, or even create something new. So let's take a look at how that could look like, if you for a moment imagine how that could look like. Maybe it would look something like this, at least something with the product and a chat on the side. I have already asked a few questions here. I mean, what page am I on? It knows, apparently, I'm on this order processor role center page. What apps are installed? These are the apps which are installed on my tenant. What if the headline, I don't use it, it takes up space. Let's just remove headline. And now it starts working on it. It knows where I am, it knows my tenant, it considered what is the user asking for, what is the headline, and hopefully the AI is warming up now a little bit. And it should, now it figured out that there's a headline control. It looks at the page. Again, we have talked about the tools. These are some of the same tools that we have already shared in the AL MCP server inside our AL extension. And this one failed. That's strange. But again, this is a prototype, so let's try to do it manually. No. Try connecting again. This is talking to a service inside here. All right. And now I have to talk a little bit more than I expected because something went wrong. But again, it's now trying to do the same. It's analyzing what I asked for. It's looking at the context. And hopefully this time it's connected properly and are able to remove the headline for me.
So it's not quite ready for customers yet.
But again, it's doing the same. It's finding out how the page is looking, and publishing is well, this kills the demo a little bit. Let's continue with the next part and see if we can get this one running after. This is really boring.
Okay, but maybe we can just talk about what you would have seen if it worked.
I can run the video.
Prepared.
I'm also prepared. So let's run the video instead. It's the same you're seeing now. I'm here I'm actually asking the question, what are apps installed? And this is a tool that plugs into the server and knows that I have these installed. And let's try to hide the headline. And this time I'm actually trying to use end-user friendly wording, remove the headline, because an end user would not necessarily mean whether we are hiding it or removing it. And it's now, again, this time on video, doing all the work, and it's publishing. And since this is a prototype, early stages, I need to do the manual refresh. But as you notice, the headline disappeared. So what if I want to add something new? For instance, I want to add a new tile that is showing all sales orders above 100,000, all open sales orders above 100,000, because they are important to me. I want to name it high value orders. I actually don't know myself how to create a new tile, but apparently the agent is way better at it than I am, because thinks a bit, searching for symbols probably in a moment, looking at page layouts, looking at relations, searching more symbols, even more. And at some point it will write some code. Yes, it figured out that the sales order processor activities, that's the part we're seeing up here. That's the one that's going to be changed. Finding a bunch of IDs which are not already used. Writing the files, compiling, and it fails. It's running an in-memory compiler, so it gets fast feedback and figure out what to correct. Apparently there was an ID problem. And soon I think we will see a successful compile. Yes, and now it has actually created a new tile. It's publishing. It's way better than live. And as you see, we got a new high value orders up there. Not really where I wanted it, but again, I'd never told it where I wanted it to be. So what I did instead is move it. It's a conversation, so I can just tell it, move it to the existing activities group rather than creating a new one. And again, figures out what I wanted to do. And I'm not sure why it wants some new IDs, but that's fine. Cleaning up, compiling again. Now it will publish it. And hopefully it's now placed in the right spot. Just a second. And this time I know it will succeed because it's a video, which is a good thing. Remember that, always bring a video. And a manual refresh. And that's good. Now I have actually successfully added my high value orders up there. But what if I wanted to create something completely new? For instance, I would like to have an Excel report showing me those high value orders. It actually, by the way, also added a drill down for me while at it, which is nice. But I would actually like a new Excel report showing exactly those high value orders. So I just ask for it, create an Excel report showing the high value orders, start thinking, finding a template for it, looking at some symbols, all the tools, once again, they are good at this. And hopefully should have the report ready, yes. Deploy it. And let's find it. I forgot to refresh. There you go. And now it's there. As you can see, nice layout matching our other new Excel reports. And three sales orders above 100,000 found in the report as well. This is a prototype, obviously. It didn't even manage to survive the keynote, but we are looking at this, and it's very promising.
So what I like about this is a couple of things. One is we've seen, so you have to imagine this is the real chat window. This is not Copilot, CLI or anything, even if it looks slightly like it. You have to imagine it is inside the main experience, being the chat function that end users can interact with. And what I like about this is two things. One is the tools that Steffen showed you that can be plugged into VS Code, into GitHub CLI, into others. It can also be plugged into a coding agent that runs inside of Business Central that you've made. Because what is a coding agent at the heart? Well, it's a agentic loop with the right tools and with the right instructions. Then it can actually write code, and that's what we're seeing here. The second thing I like about this is the scenario. Because imagine we can get this right, it's not trivial, with the kind of security and other aspects in mind. If we can get this right, Business Central becomes so much more powerful, and our end users can do so much more. So it's a really strong value proposition. But I think it was a little bit slow, Esben. So you give it a command, you have to sit and wait 20 seconds, right? I noticed in particular the deployment step was pretty slow. Can we do something about that?
Yes. We have actually thought a little bit about that as well. And in order to be successful in being 100% ready for agentic engineering, we need speed. Agents love speed, we developers love speed, so we need to get fast feedback when we make changes. We normally talk about 2 nested feedback cycles during development. There's a fast inner loop close to the code and a slower outer loop that surrounds it with collaboration, validation, and delivery. Here I will talk about the inner loop, but what we're talking about here will also affect the outer loop. This loop we are seeing here is the fast iteration. I, as a developer, make a change. The compiler tells me I'm missing a semicolon or something. I go back, change it. This is normally very fast. We also made this loop, fast inner loop, available to agents through the MCP, the LSP, and they get the same fast feedback. And that matters because languages which have a fast feedback loop tend to share the ability, or agents that works well with languages that have a fast feedback loop. But a successful compile is not the same as proving that the change is correct. So we need a little bit more. We need something like this, where we also deploy it and we run it. And that was also what we saw before. We need to deploy. And this is where the costs start to stack up. And it does that because we do a lot more when we deploy. And most of you are probably aware that when we deploy, we generate some C# code. We need to compile it, and in the cloud, we even have to sign it. And that is time consuming. So the question became, could we make this faster? What could we do to actually optimize this and get a tighter loop here? And the idea we came up with is not exactly new. I mean, most of you probably remember C-side and FOB files. And before you get too excited, stop yourself. We're not bringing it back. But we did look at the past in order to try help us shaping the future. So instead of emitting C#, the backend compiler could emit AL-specific bytecode, a little bit like we used to do. And that bytecode would end up running in an AL virtual machine. And since bytecode is a portable instruction format and the VM is the engine that runs it on any machine, that sounds nice. And in old terminology, it would be the FOB file containing bytecode and then C-side executed it. So let me give you an idea of the difference. If we take this picture again, we have these steps here, and if we change that, instead we will have a single emit bytecode step. And the bytecode step, not only are we reducing the number of steps because we are pulling out 2, but it also turns out that emitting bytecode is a faster operation for us than emitting C#, because it's more lean. Creating C# is huge trees we are emitting. So let's jump to my machine over here and show you what that would look like. This is probably close to the world's smallest AL code unit, and it's fairly boring. But when we generate C# from this, it actually becomes all this. Lots of line, lots of code. Has to be compiled, and that's also take time. If we instead created bytecode, we would get something like this. Small binary format, and this is actually, I think, 217 bytes to represent the same piece of code. And it's binary, and that's also why I'm showing hex code here. But if we disassemble it, it looks a little bit like this. It has no globals, it has no triggers, we could see that. There's no strings there. And then there's some instructions down here. And these are actually the 6 instructions that makes up this small method. It turns out that deployment of bytecode in this prototype is around 40% faster, at least with the test suite we have been testing on. It's nowhere near complete, but that's interesting. That's a lot of speed. But, I mean, maybe we could even go a little bit further than that, because maybe the fastest deployment is actually not deploying, I mean keeping this loop inside VS Code. So if we instead uses a local test runner that executes bytecode, we will be able to inside VS Code in a tight loop do a compile where we emit the bytecode already client side, and then have a test runner that has a mock server and a in-memory database. Of course, this is not a full server, but it would allow all logic to be tested. So let me switch again back to the machine here. I have out here two test suites. I have one with some computational workloads, and I have another one over here with a bunch of other tests, and almost 800 tests in total. And you already saw Steffen showing the test runner. Here I have added another one, another run type called run unit test runtime. And that one is producing bytecode and running it locally. And that doing the same deployment to a local server takes around 40 seconds running the same tests. Here it took 9, including a deployment, I think, or generating the bytecode. There's a couple of failures because this is not ready. I mean, this is methods in our stock library it doesn't know about yet. But it shows that we are able to do very fast and lean test run that will be able to test at least a subset of tests.
Very cool, Esben. Thank you very much. I think these are really, really exciting things, and I hope they will come to materialize as product one day. A couple of calls to action. So what I think you should do now is go and create your first agents in Business Central. What Steffen showed is very easy. You just click that little avatar, and you are started in any sandbox environment. Use the MCP servers. from Copilot Studio or from VS Code, either or. It's very, very simple to get started, and you get a feel for what you can use this for. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this keynote is, agentic engineering is not optional. It's something you must do, otherwise you will be behind. So please do that. So clearly, this keynote has been about AI agents, but just know that we are, of course, also doing all the other boring stuff, not boring stuff, I'm kidding, application functionality with sustainability, analytics, with reports, administrative features, performance, with index management, service reliability. You don't see that, but we are improving reliability on our side. Same with security. Usability, you do see, right? Because we're making some improvements in the UI. So a bunch of things. I also want to share a few numbers with you. Last year at this keynote, we announced that we have 45,000 customers running in Business Central Online. That number today has grown to 55,000, which is, I think, is an amazing growth. But that is not even the full story, because those 10,000 customers that we got in the last year are generally much bigger than the customers we had before. It is now absolutely normal that customers come to Business Central Online with hundreds of users, sometimes thousands of users. So what's hiding behind these numbers is a much more amazing growth in our product and our business. So this is really great. It's not due to Microsoft, it is due to all of you, our partner community, really helping grow this business. If you want to know more about the things you saw today, you are in luck, because there are deep dive sessions on all of it. On the product agents, on the engineering agents, and on the engineering agents in particular, we have presentations from Microsoft and also from partners. And in many cases, our partners are further ahead than we are. And I really, really encourage you to go and watch those sessions and learn and absorb all the knowledge you can there. I also want to invite you to come to our booth in the expo area. We will be there in all the breaks. There's 30 of us, as Luc said, and we are there to talk to you. Come with a question, come with feedback, come with a story, just come and hang out. We would love to talk to you. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming to this keynote. Thank you for coming to BC TechDays. Thank you for being part of this community. And also, just remember who you are. Go and shape your engineering future. And that's the last I'm going to say. But I promised Waldo 1 minute at the end. So have him come here. But thank you from my side.
Yeah, I need my 1 minute of fame as well. So thank you for that, Christian. I'm here in name of the MVP community. And a few weeks ago, we had the opportunity to pre-watch, let's say, the movie on another conference, Directions Asia. And with the movie, I mean, I'm sure you know which movie I mean. The one in the restrooms where there was a Steffen Kenobi basically whispering that we do have a future, right? For that, I think, Yesper, can you please join me? That the lead actor deserves an award. So I contacted the Oscars.
An Oscar?
Well, they were not interested, so you were not that good. But we created our own award. So, I mean, BC TechDays, it's a movie theater. We could have done this privately, but I mean, if you can do it for 1,200 people, why do it privately? Yeah, I imagine. So we created a BC TechDays Movie Award, nicknamed the Yesper. So, congratulations, you are the first and probably the last winner of the movie award. Thank you so much. And in the name of the MVPs, enjoy Tech Days and come to my session at 2 o'clock in room 5 for telemetry.